An ugly, shy orphan boy is doing his best to care for his little sister. One morning on his way to school, he unexpectedly runs into a childhood friend, the very same girl who became his enemy years ago after she destroyed his family's garden and then disappeared without a word. A little boy and a little girl exchange glances in a field of sunflowers. Many years later, in a Japanese high school, a classmate asks Watari if he's going to join any club. He replies that he can't. He has to take care of his younger sister who's still in 4th grade. As he walks away, the classmate grumbles that Watari always uses that excuse to get out of hanging out with them. Just then, Tokui Shijinabu, a student in the same class, calls over Watari Naoto, a 16-year-old second-year student. Wanting to have a word a bit farther from the crowd, Tokui asks if Naoto wants to join a casual group that hasn't really decided on anything yet. Once again, Naoto explains that as much as he'd love to, he needs to look after his sister and might even have to start working soon. Tokui says it's cool how devoted Naoto is to his family and mentions that he's super close to his grandfather too. Naoto feels relieved. Tokui is the only person who has never claimed to have a little sister complex. Speaking of girls, Ishihara Yukari suddenly goes up in the hallway, asking if Naoto is coming to the meeting today since they've decided to build a flower bed. With his heart racing, Naoto provides his usual answer. He needs to take care of his sister since they live near each other. Ishihara promises to stop by and drop off her notes even though he's turned down the invitation. As she leaves, she calls him little brother, which leaves Naoto completely smitten by her cuteness. At home, Naoto reflects on how his life revolves around his little sister, Watari Suzushiro. While they eat a meal he cooked for the two of them, he asks her how old she turned last month. She answers question 10 with a burst of excitement. Later, as Naoto is doing the dishes, he's surprised by the arrival of his Aunt Tamil, who's 28. She quips that Naoto bears a striking resemblance to his father and expresses gratitude for Suzu's resemblance to her mother, despite the latter's shorter stature. Setting that aside, Tamil hands him an envelope with his allowance, and Naoto is shocked by how much he got this month. His aunt asks him to buy something nice, Suzu, since it was her birthday. The conversation then veered off topic. She finds it oddly satisfying to give her older brother an allowance. Observing her unusual behavior regarding the matter, Mayato cannot help but find it quite peculiar, as if she is suggesting that there was some sort of relationship between her and his father. After she leaves, Mayato reflects that his aunt is a pretty mysterious person. She seems like a housewife, but she spends most of her time holed up in her room and never goes out to work the next morning. Suzu asks her brother for assistance with her hair. He tells her not to depend on him, but Suzu says he'll take care of her even when she's old and gray. In fact, she says she couldn't live without her big brother. They're the only family each other has. Hearing that, Naoto feels a wave of sadness. Their parents died 2 years ago, and ever since, he and Suzu have bounced from one relative's house to another. Just a month ago, they moved into their aunt's place on the outskirts of Tokyo. Once they're ready, Naoto walks his little sister to school. Along the way, she points out some soybean plants, the same kind their mother used to grow long ago. Naoto asks what she wants for her birthday, since she hasn't gotten anything yet. She lights up, excited at the promise of a present later that day. Meanwhile, a blonde girl in the same school uniform walks behind them, and Naoto gets an uneasy feeling, though he doesn't know why. He quickly orders Suzu home after class. Cut to the moment when Watari said Ishihara was adorable. Tokui tells him to forget about her. Even Naoto admits she's way out of his league. Apparently, Tokui heard she even turned down a scout from a national modeling agency. And speaking of beautiful girls, a stunning new student just transferred into the class next door. Tachibana Satsuki, a name that makes Watari break out in a cold sweat just hearing it. At the end of the day, Naoto Watari is putting his things away in his locker when the blonde girl from earlier calls out his name. The moment he hears her voice, that same chill runs down his spine, but he brushes her off and heads out of school. The problem is, she's persistent. She decides it's a fantastic idea to chase after him, calling his name over and over. Eventually, Naoto gets fed up and demands to know what this garden destroyer wants with a sly smile. She makes an introduction despite being glad he remembers her. Tachibana Satsuki. It's been 6 years since they last saw each other. Naoto says she's followed him all morning, but she corrects him. It's been ever since she transferred in. Irritated, he says he hasn't forgiven her for destroying their garden 6 years ago. She apologizes, but only for following him around. Moving on, she says she has something important to tell him, but Naoto makes up an excuse and tries to leave. Satsuki protests that he used to treat her much better, and he admits that's only because she suddenly disappeared from his life. With that, the girl grabs him from behind and promises she won't let go until he hears her out. Giving in, Naoto begs to be released, and when she finally lets go, he bolts at full speed, instantly turning it into a chase. Not far away, Suzu is walking down the street, thinking about what she wants as a present. She sees a joyful family working in a garden, and something tells her that's exactly what she wants. Suddenly, her brother appears like a maniac, grabs her by her backpack, and darts into the house before he can be safely reunited. Suzu asks who the girl was, but Naoto shrugs it off, saying it was no one. The little girl then reveals what she really wants: a garden so she can plant vegetables with her big brother. Naoto, embarrassed, says they have no land for that, but Suzu insists he can just buy some. Out of nowhere, Aunt Tamo appears, looming ominously from behind a door, and she offers her backyard for their vegetable patch since it's empty and she's never used it, even if it's totally overgrown. As Naoto checks out the yard, he feels the pressure of that wild, endless grass, but he's still willing to give it a try for his sister's sake. In the middle of all this, Satsuki suddenly pops up, a hoe in her hand, scaring the life out of him. Meanwhile, Ishihara is wandering around trying to find the Watari Gray house until she hears Naoto's scream. Naoto asks what on earth Satsuki is doing in his aunt's backyard, but she just remembers there was something she needed to talk about. Naoto says he doesn't even know why she holds a grudge against him. He's finally about to start a normal life with Suzu, but Satsuki insists he's got it all wrong, and when words won't get through to him, she decides to act. Suddenly, she pulls him in and kisses him full-on right there. At that exact moment, Ishihara is peeking into the yard from outside and catches Satsuki and Naoto falling to the ground in a scene straight out of a romance movie. As if that wasn't enough, Satsuki continues to kiss him with abandon. In all honesty, Naoto is unable to express his disapproval. Next thing he knows, he's waking up in his bed in the middle of the night, only remembering that he lost his breath in the garden. That's when his aunt bursts into his room, calling him a pervert and promising to kick him out if he ever gets up to anything in her yard again. When morning comes, Naoto walks Suzu to school and tries to explain to the little one that there's nothing going on with that blonde girl. But Suzu, obviously jealous, wants nothing to do with his excuses and decides to fix up the garden herself. She dashes off, leaving her brother behind, who can't figure out why she doesn't remember Satsuki at all. At school, Ishihara is trying to figure out if she really saw Watari kissing Tachibana yesterday, and if so, that must mean the two are dating. Speak of the devil, Naoto suddenly shows up apologizing for missing the meeting yesterday and says he won't be able to make it today either. Ishihara understands he's always taken care of his sister, unlike her own younger brother, who stopped talking to her once he grew up. Naoto says that guy's lucky to have Ishihara as a sister, and right then Satsuki appears, greeting him with a cheery good morning. Naoto, fuming, demands to know how she could do that to him yesterday, but Satsuki brushes him off and, watching closely, decides that young Watari clearly has a thing for a certain pair of watermelons, since that's exactly what Ishihara's got. Mortified, Naoto grabs Satsuki and runs off with her, leaving Ishihara totally confused by what just happened. Out on the school balcony, Naoto tries to wrap his head around what's going on with this troublemaker while she returns the hoe she borrowed from him 6 years ago, back when the Watari family still lived in Shinshu. Satsuki arrived, Naoto offered her a tomato, and they talked. Before long, they'd become close friends. They were so close that Naoto's mother once expressed her admiration for him. However, one day, Satsuki abruptly destroyed the Waters' garden and vanished without warning. Back to the present, Naoto asks why she did it, but Satsuki refuses to tell, knowing he'll never forgive her. Still, she wants to apologize for real, and she wouldn't even mind if he wanted to do something a little naughty as payback. Flustered, Naoto tells her to just spit it out already, but since he's still clueless, Satsuki lowers her head and leaves, making Naoto look like the bad guy after all. And honestly, he can't believe his very first kiss was just yesterday with her. Later, still at school, Tokiwi asks Naoto for help with something in the AV room, and Naoto is thrown off when he sees Ishihara there too. Walking home, he's bummed that Ishihara's been avoiding eye contact all day. She's always been his comfort since high school, and now Satsuki's messed that up. As if on cue, Satsuki arrives, carrying Suzu under her arm, who has a scraped knee. Thinking something serious happened, Naoto grabs his hoe and orders Satsuki to let the kid go. But Satsuki stands her ground, knowing full well Naoto would never actually hurt a girl. With that, she let Suzu down, and Suzu explained the older girl only picked her up after she fell. Plus, Suzu managed to get her to help with the garden. Miyato's confused. Wasn't his sister jealous? But the little one says she remembers Satsuki, the girl who used to live in Shinshu, so she doesn't mind being friends. So Satsuki heads back home with the siblings, excited to help out and claiming she's got plenty of gardening know-how since, according to her, the Shinshu garden was hers before it belonged to the Watari family. Naoto is stunned by this, but before she can explain, Ishihara shows up and asks to talk to him alone. The next day, the two meet by themselves at a supermarket. The rest of the group couldn't make it. Ishihara says. Meanwhile, Suzu and Satsuki are taking care of the garden, and the little girl bursts into tears, thinking maybe her brother's forgotten about her. The day before, Ishihara had said the committee decided to buy the supplies for the garden bed, so they'd have to go shopping after school tomorrow. Suzu remembered that her brother had promised to work in the yard with her at that time, so Satsuki offered to help her out instead, giving Naoto the freedom to go shopping with the committee right now. Satsuki calls Suzu to go shopping, leaving the garden for later. At the market, after grabbing a bag of fertilizer, Ishihara finally musters up the courage to ask Watari if he's dating Tachibana. When Watari explains he's not, he tries to confess his feelings for Ishihara, but in the moment of truth, he chickens out. As they leave the market, Naoto is ambushed by his little sister, who instantly gets jealous seeing him alone with a girl and starts calling him every name in the book. To calm her down, he shows her the little blue bow he bought just for her since Suzu isn't a fan of girly colors like pink. Meanwhile, Satsuki quietly slips away without anyone noticing, and Ishihara blurts out that she loves Watari, drawn in by the way he treats her younger sister. Realizing she said too much, she desperately tries to backtrack, but after seeing the mess she's made, she bolts off, completely embarrassed. Confused, Suzu asks where Satsuki went, and Naoto only then realizes the blonde girl had even been there. At home, Suzu is bursting with excitement as she proudly displays her new hoe to Aunt Tomio, while Naoto questions how Satsuki ended up in their backyard. Sure enough, when he heads around the house, he spots that same blonde hair fluttering in the breeze, just like it did that summer 6 years ago when Satsuki greeted him with a welcome back. Now she wants to know how his date went. So Naoto awkwardly explains that he was alone with Ishihara only because the others couldn't make it. Either way, Satsuki makes it clear she wants to go on a date with him too, though a second later she laughs it off as just a joke. Nervous, Naoto swears to himself he won't fall for her tricks again. He never wants to feel what he did as a kid, not ever again. Looking out at the yard, he comments on how strangely clean everything looks, and Satsuki just shrugs, saying she kept her promise since pulling the weeds would have been too much work. She dug everything up at once, with zero shame. She says she'll change out of her sweaty clothes in the yard and takes her shirt off. But Naoto catches her just in time. And when Aunt Tamil opens the door to the garden, Naoto, having lost his balance, is about to fall right on top of that same little blonde troublemaker from last time. Aunt Tamil had made it clear she was done putting up with that kind of nonsense in her house, so Naoto ends up getting a serious scolding, complete with a brutal smackdown. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting, and please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.